what's the significance of going to a mosque specifically on Fridays, as well as the significance of 5 times per day for praying as well.
So Allah chose Saturday to be special for Jews, and the same God, He said, okay, for Christians, when Jesus is there, I'm going to change that day to Sunday, right? And that also helps you distinguish, are you upgrading to the Prophet or not, right? It could be similar to, like, let's say whoever your supervisor is, you're still working for the same company. When the supervisor changes, he may have new policies, a new law, but if you're true and loyal to the company, you will follow the new law and policy. You wouldn't be calling your old supervisor, right? And your old supervisor will tell you the same thing, that, hey, you know what? I'm not writing you paychecks. This company is, follow the new supervisor. So that's what Muslim is, right? So they submit to the law of Allah, whatever that may be. And yes, there may be struggle, right? So when you are struggling to follow the law of Allah, what you can do is, again, same thing. You can go and take the route of Satan, that, oh, why is this law? It doesn't make sense. We're in 2020. We should have this freedom, and everybody should be allowed to do whatever they want, right? And that's what is happening a lot today, right? People are justifying what used to be norms, from a morality perspective. Now it's all changing, right? And people are arguing about it. Or you could do the second approach is like, yes, I know I should be doing this. I'm working on it. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not, and I'm working on it to get to 100%, right? So that's what a Muslim is. And so the concept of salvation in Islam then is someone who first acknowledges that there is a higher power and tries to live a life by the law of that higher power, and acknowledges Quran and Sunnah, right? So that's one option. Or you will be doing it based on I do whatever I feel is right, or whatever my friends or my culture or my family feels is right. Right? Where is your actions and your values coming from? So if it's coming from Allah and His book, then you could have a struggle. You could be working on towards it, and from the mercy of Allah, and also any pain point that we have in this world, like sickness or any grief or death or whatever that we are patient on, that also expiates our sins. Okay, and then we meet Allah. We hope for His forgiveness, we hope for His grace, and that's how we make it to paradise. If we did not live a life like that, we had no belief whatsoever, then that's it. Then you're not even participating in the game, if you will, right? Because you just quit too early, right? Like, for example, let's say, just taking example of Audi or BMW, right? So you have joined it consciously, right? So different people may get different bonuses, right, based on their performance, or, well, in this world we get bonuses based on results. Right? With Allah, you get rewarded based on intentions and efforts, not results. Because we believe that results are totally in the hands of Allah. There could be two people. One would have like a higher intention, okay, and way more effort, but the results would be less. So an example I give to new Muslim, you and I, let's say, go for prayers, right? Now, I don't have to put as much effort because I already know, let's say, Arabic, right? You are putting way more effort, right? Or maybe your love and your humbleness is like way higher than mine, okay? Now the results, if you just look at the sound quality or whatever, hopefully mine will be better, right? But the reward will probably be you might be 10x better than a born Arab, right? Who may know the language, but because you are focused, your heart is there, you love Allah, you're feeling that, and you are putting in more effort. Right? So that's where the results come from in terms of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is intention and effort. And so that's the understanding of salvation, for us in Islam according to Quran and Sunnah. Right? Why we do it? So the way we ask this question, the why is because we believe that we trust Allah and His judgment, right? So we know that is, as Justin mentioned, that if you were to do it, even if you're not Muslim, that would be good for society. So we believe that these things are, first of all, He has the right to demand it. B, if we were to do it, we would do better as a society, and this is what would establish justice and harmony and productivity and all different things. So we believe that, and that's why we do it, right? So that's the why. Because let's say if we pick up anything, like we pick up prayers or we pick up alcohol, right? And then there are many people who are not Muslims, they don't drink alcohol. Justin mentioned a very good example. So what would happen is when we ask the question of what are some of the wisdoms, right? So first of all, we may not know the 100% of the wisdom, right? That would depend on what we have seen in life, what our experiences is, what kind of research data we have access to. And today, I may know some wisdom based on my limited knowledge, but someone who has way more knowledge of something else, let's say alcohol or substances, what have you, they may, or doctors, they may be able to appreciate it way more than me. And 10 years from now, we may be able to appreciate more as a community, as a humanity, because now we have more data. So the example that Justin gave about washing hands, right? Or cleaning yourself, and then especially the mouth and the nose, right? Now we all appreciate it.
Particularly that.
Yeah, so now we can all appreciate it, but hey, like we have a different appreciation of it in the last 3 years than what we had like 10 years ago. The wisdom was still there, right? It's just that we now we can appreciate it better, right? But why do we do it? We do it because that's what we have been taught, right? That's what Allah has said. This is how you clean. So He is not making it super hard. It's still practical, right? That you can still do it at work, at parks, during job, whatever you are. So you don't need to go and take a full shower or like, put yourself into like some sort of a desanitizer or what have you. It's still practical. It's still doable. It gives you that physical cleansing, and then you're going for spiritual cleansing, right? So the main thing I'm trying to say is that when it comes to the question, why we do it? For Allah, right? To be grateful, to obey Him, to submit to Him. Next question is, okay, let's research some of the wisdom behind that law. Okay? So some of the generic wisdom we have been given in the Quran and the Hadith and the Sunnah, and some come with practice, with life, with reflection, with research, as a very basic example of this thing. Now, someone would say that, okay, well, in general, yeah, someone said, well, I don't get distracted with girls, so what, right? But so in general, as a community, we don't pray together. So you're not praying side by side. They can be in the same room though, right? So like obviously at this center we have different rooms as well. But technically speaking, if you are within the same room, that's fine, right? It's just that you wouldn't be facing each other. You'll be facing the Qibla direction, or like they will be behind you or on the side or what have you. They don't have to be necessarily in a totally separate room or a different building, right? But I'm saying that any such law can be looked at from that lens, and that is open to research, right? Maybe you may do some research and you may come up with something I didn't even know, or I just didn't read, right? That doesn't mean that I'm following that because of that law, okay? The other thing that came up was like why 5 prayers, and Justin used the word recommended. So we actually have 5 different layers of law. Any of you guys know about that? Really? How can you be a Muslim? Just kidding. Okay, so here's the difference, right? So there's an obligation, things that you must do. So 5 prayers or 5 times of prayers are something that you must do. And another thing that he mentioned, which is like, very good reflection, is if you're not praying, what are you doing? So what this signifies is that let's say if you're working or you're making money or you're doing trade or you're educating yourself, you realize that, look, yes, I'm trying to be still productive. I'm not wasting my time. However, me pausing and taking 5-10 minutes will help me connect with the bigger purpose. I'm not a servant or a slave or a worshiper of this job or this education. I can stop and I can just take 5-10 minutes, connect with that higher power, realize my boundaries, my values, my my true purpose, and then go from there. So that's an obligation. You must do it, right?
Were you referring to 5 pillars just now? You mean the 5 pillars?
No, I'm saying there are 5 different types of law or commands, if you will, or classification. So this is something you must do, right? Which in Arabic is called fard. Fard or wajib. Okay, it's just testing. So that's just like, okay, so that's stuff you must do. Okay, the second thing that he mentioned is recommended. So what is recommended is to pray more than 5 prayers, right?
Really?
Yeah. So basically, what we know from the Prophet ﷺ, like he wouldn't just pray 5 prayers. He's also praying at night, in the middle of the night. He's praying like the Salat al-Duha, right? Before Dhuha. So there are different times he's praying. And when we use the word prayers, it's hard because in English we have 2 different types of prayers, and we have the same word in English language. So there's one prayer which we saw downstairs, right? How people were praying in a formal manner, right?
Yeah, okay.
So that requires that you need to have washed yourself and well that, okay? Now there's another thing. So there are more recommended prayers as well. So this is recommended is if you don't pray, you're not sinning. You have done the bare minimum, but if you want to excel, you can pray more. Okay. Now There's another type of prayer which you mentioned is basically thinking about God or talking to God. Okay, so that is also what we would call prayer in English, but in Arabic it's called mindfulness or remembrance of God, or the Arabic word will be dhikr, right, or dua. So that is something that we we are recommended to do as much as possible, because that's what's keep you mindful, right, and conscious of God, to the point that just like you're sitting, right, oh God help me, oh teach me. Well, you could just be talking with voice or without voice in your head, and that's really recommended. And on top of that, what we also have is we have a specific form of praises and remembrance of God and supplications for different occasions, right? So you may have noticed that when we were shaking hands downstairs, many people were saying Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah.
So that is a prayer.
Okay.
Which means that peace be with you.
Yeah, or peace be upon you.
Peace be upon you, peace be with you, right? And As-salam is also one of the name of God, because all peace and all security is from Him.
Right.
So that's a prayer on the occasion of meeting each other, and also when you leave each other. You still say Assalamu alaikum. You leave in peace, you meet in peace, right? When you wear clothes, right? There's a prayer for that. Right? When you complete your ablution, there's a prayer for that. These are all recommended. So if you don't do it, you're not sinning. You can also say it in English. You can also be mindful. But I'm just saying that the being conscious, but all those things kind of go in the second category, which is recommended. And then obviously you can just flip those two things. So the flip of obligation would be not do it, prohibition, right? So that is also, you may have heard of the word called haram, right? So it's impermissible. You should not do it. If you do it, you're sinning, right? And then coming on the flip of recommended is something that is disliked or discouraged. So you are not hitting the boundary of sin, but it's discouraged to do that, all right? So that's as an example of that. And then in the middle is things that are open, right? So for example, you're wearing I don't know, blue, right? You're also wearing blue, I don't know. But I mean, obviously it's different shades of blue, but it's blue to me from an RGB perspective. The point being that you can wear different colors, right? Whatever, right? You could have different types of water, different types of food. So in general, those are open things. As we said, it's just some boundaries, and then you can do whatever, right? So you're working in car, you're working in accounting, you're working with the trees. It's all different choices, different forms, right? And we're not going to say, oh, one is better than the other or what have you, unless you have another specific intention behind it, right? So yes, I'm wearing this because not only is it a random thing, but because my wife likes it or my mom likes it, right? So now you have a second intention behind it. So obviously there's reward for it to make your mom happy, your wife happy, or whatever. But in general, it's an open thing, right? I'm choosing to reduce coffee, or I'm eating healthier, right? So you have rewards for it, but in general, those are open things. So these are the 5 layers. So it's not everything is like yes, no, but you have like a spectrum, right? So that's what I meant by the 5 types of law.